Chair Stamper,
I am here.
Vice Chair Eisen,
Here.
Commissioner Eisen,
Here.
Commissioner Haro.
Here.
All right, you have a quorum.
And note for the record, our other commissioner who's not in attendance at this moment in time,
RJ Jennings is absent.
at this point. And we'll just note for the record if he joins the meeting later on.
Okay. Yes. All right. Let's
All right.
go then.
Yeah. So Hillary, can you ask for approval of the minutes?
Sure. Okay. So, Eddie, first, I just wanted to ask can you walk us through the agenda?
I sure can.
And okay. And I think that the approval of minutes is the first thing.
Yes, approval of minutes.
I can make a motion to approve the minutes from last session.
All right.
Let's do it. I second.
Great.
Motion carries.
Does it?
And
We have to say aye. We have to approve it. Yeah, I approve it.
I approve.
Great. We can go ahead and move on to announcements and correspondence. Do we have any announcements? Okay, doesn't look like it. Now we have our public comments for non-agenda items. If there's someone in the crowd tonight that would like to make a public comment, just raise your hand and we'll allow you to speak.
All right. I just wanted to make an announcement that I do want to say in case people don't know about it, is that we have, for the first time, a film festival. I don't think we've ever had one before. We have a film festival coming up at the Coastal Repertory Theater called Beach Break Film Festival. And they've got a really good lineup of some very interesting films. So, I recommend that you take a look at the website, take a look at the films and see if there's anything you want to go to. It starts off with a party and ends with a party. And it's a nice, as I say, great lineup of films. And I'm excited to see how this goes. And hopefully it's the first film festival that will continue annually.
Cool. Thank you.
All right, commissioners, it doesn't look like there's any public comment. So we can go ahead and move on to our regular updates. I'll go ahead and kick it off with our city council updates. From our November 16th meeting, the city council proclaimed the month of November as Native American Heritage Month in Half Moon Bay. The council also received an update on the progress of the Poplar Street Traffic Calming and Safety Project, and also adopted a resolution approving the amended capital improvement project page, phasing the Poplar Street Traffic Calming and Safety Project. From our December 6th meeting, the council adopted a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a professional services agreement with SWCA Environmental Consultants in the amount of $328 for the environmental and entitlement services associated with the Pillarcitos Creek Restoration and Remediation Project. And for our recreation updates tonight, a quick reminder to the commission, to the public.
Eddie?
Yep.
Let me just, I'll add from last night, I think a couple of not critically, well, maybe of interest, but not so much for the Parks and Rec, is the council introduced the new California building standards codes that are required every 3 years to be adopted. Rather unexciting, I know, in the realm of that, but that code also codifies some of the EV and PV, the photovoltaic stuff and everything with that the state has now brought forward. So there's a lot now that the California codes have brought forward. So that was done. And then the second piece was to amend the disposable foodware ordinance. And I encourage, if you have any interest in it, to go look at it and dig through it. But it's primarily just aligning the city's ordinance with the county's ordinance, which is set to go into effect across all of San Mateo County, and not have the city have adopted that and nothing else with that. So just in the event that there's questions or whatever, and those do affect events that we put on. They affect special events that others put on that Eddie has to manage and kind of work through and deal with it. So anyway, I just put that out there as a couple of items that were on there, and deal with that.
Thanks, John. Moving on to the recreation updates, again, just a reminder to the commission, to the public watching, our citywide furlough does begin on Friday, December 23rd. All city operations and facilities will be closed during that time and will reopen on Tuesday, January 3rd. Also, about a year ago, we came to the commission to announce that we had entered into an MOU with the school district and the Boys and Girls Club that would allow the recreation department to offer programming out of the Boys and Girls Club Event Center and the Cunha Unified School District Middle School's tennis courts. And we've now come to a year of that arrangement, and have been given the approval by the superintendent of the school district, Sean McFettridge, to continue that usage through 2023. So I thought I would announce that today. It's a pretty exciting thing for us to be allowed to continue offering programming there and continue providing the services that we've been providing over there. So good news for recreation, good news for drop-in basketball and pickleball folks. Also, it's our annual.
Eddie, can you clarify? Is the drop-in there for pickleball at the event center?
That's a program that utilizes the tennis courts outside.
The tennis courts outside.
Yeah, so we do the drop-in basketball inside the event center, and then out back at the tennis courts is the pickleball program.
Okay, all right, good.
Another fun announcement, we are coming close to our annual Saturday with Santa event. That's a partnership event that we host with the Half Moon Bay Library staff. And that free event will take place this Saturday at the Half Moon Bay Library from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So we encourage all our commissioners, all the public to come and attend and enjoy the event with us. It's always a great time. And finally, last but not least, we were involved in a recruitment for our full-time recreation leader vacancy the last month or so. And we were able to find us a awesome brand new recreation leader. And on comments in the past by the commission, we've invited that staff to come here so we could introduce them to the commission. So if you would welcome Jessica Ramirez, our new recreation leader.
Hi, Jessica.
Hi, good afternoon. How are you? I'm Jessica,
Very good.
the new recreation leader.
So Jessica started here as a temporary worker through the Robert Half organization about 3 months ago while we had the vacancy and we're in need of some administrative support. So Jessica just did a really great job. She came in with a wealth of administrative experience, systems management experience. So she worked here as a temp for about 2 months, and then she applied for the full-time position, and we did select her to stay on. So we just wanted to make sure you're familiar with our new staff and bring her up here to ask any questions that you might have.
All right,
Thank
Jessica, here we go. Can you give me more background than Eddie just gave me on what you've done, why you're interested in this position, and how you think what kind of value you bring to this role?
So yes, look, I joined as a temporary worker, like Eddie said. I started just like as kind of like helping as in administration and a task. And I just like got involved with everything as a recreation leader. I like learned a lot about the reservations and like with the clients, you know, like doing like giving a good service. I think it's been very helpful because I'm bilingual in Spanish too. And in the community, there's like so many people who speak Spanish, so I've been able to help them a lot. And I'm just super happy to be part of the team. I have learned a lot.
You haven't had specifically experience in recreation before, other than the temporary 3-month deal that you had with us?
I have experience as assistant manager, and I also had volunteer for Christian churches, working with kids. Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
So,
And when
like
you work
doing
with
activity with them.
Commissioner Eisen, I appreciate your desire to deal with this, but this was an introduction of a new staffer, not an inquisition of a new staff.
Well, I'm not trying to, but I would like to.
I just want to be clear that this is there's an administrative role that the staff performs, and there is a role that the commissioners perform. And I just ask you to please respect that line in terms of the hiring and decisions that are made, and deal with that and stuff. We can certainly talk about it, but we're heading down a slippery slope.
We are going to look forward to working with you and appreciate the introduction. So I think perhaps if there's some more background information that you'd like to hear, can you follow up with John Paulette, please?
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome to the team, Jessica.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
We're excited to have you.
Thank you so much.
All right, Jessica, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Yeah, Jessica's been really great. Very, very heavy in the administrative experience, Paulette. That's one of the real.
Well, that's good. You need that.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, and Paulette, please come down. You can talk to us. We're both here Monday through Friday. So, and I invite all the commissioners to come down, and we can all chat and show you the stuff that we've been up to, and definitely encourage you to do that.
Very good.
Okay, that wraps up my recreation update. So I think we can move on to the Parks Master Plan update.
Yes, go ahead.
Well, I'll jump into a few of them, and then certainly we'll take up. Obviously, tonight on regular business is a conversation about Frenchman's Creek Phase 2. So I won't go into that, and we'll let Melanie and Jonathan Wu speak to that issue. I know the last meeting, the commission had asked for continuation of updates with regard to some of the projects, particularly the parks projects. So I'll take a whack at this. So one of the questions I think came from commissioners was regarding Magnolia Park, which also ties in the issues of the CFOG group and work around the community gardens project. So I'll say this, the Magnolia Park was put basically in a holding pattern in this year's capital improvement program, simply from one, a money perspective, but secondly, and probably equally or more important, was just the staffing ability to deal with that. Now, we have some additional, we do have some funding still from prior design work, and we are going to be working on that. And we're also looking at developing an RFP for request for proposals for the environmental work associated with that. So what we're planning to do is to be ready to hit the road and hit the turf quickly, basically with the beginning of the fiscal year, to get into the process of coastal development permit and environmental review and all of those things that come with that. Again, this is a project that at this point has no funding, has no identified funding source, but the sooner we get to a point of a coastal development permit, we can look at community funding, we can also look at grant funding, and we can look at all the things that come around with that. So that's the status of that. I can certainly, if you wanted, Hillary, Chair, I can take Q&A as we hit these items, or at the end. It doesn't matter, however you wish to operate in the commission.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Let's just go project by project just so that we can keep it all in. So does anyone have any questions about Magnolia Park?
Yeah. So I guess I'm just trying to understand where we are in that process again. I'm so sorry to.
No.
Just I'm not like trying to push anything moving faster or reducing back, but I know at one point I thought we had done a pretty good study of the area at one point and had some initial plans, I think. Mm-hmm. And then I'm not sure where we left off kind of after that.
So that I apologize. I should have started there with, with the audience and with the community. So yes, we last year or earlier this year went through a process. We went with Kikuchi firm to do some concept work. They worked up 3 basic concepts. We had a major community event actually out in the field, and got some great input, and that input was taken, and really where we left off was that's as far as it went at that point. It kind of stopped at that point because we were struggling with just timing, other projects and everything going. So what we want to do between now and the end of the fiscal year is to come back, circle back around to that point, come back to the community, land on and try to identify what is the preferred project that we want to proceed with in terms of the coastal development permit and the environmental review, and then go from that point on to get civil engineer, do an RFP for both environmental and for the design work in all likelihood with that, and kind of move from there. So thank you, and I apologize. I left everybody hanging on where we got to and what we were doing at that point. So
yeah, no worries. My goal, and then because we have a couple of projects like this out there, mm-hmm. is just to make sure as we're moving forward, and we're probably going to prioritize again and all the various things you know best. So, I mean, but it's just to make sure we're not either overextending, underextending, whatever it may be, but that we kind of make sure our energies are focused wisely on the stuff we can get done. And we're just truthful and honorable about that, because, sometimes not that we've done this ever in the city, but sometimes people can put money towards something, and then the timeline ends up being so long we have to put money towards it again before we move on it. And it's like, I'd rather just make sure that we're doing it one time, one project at a time, unless, whatever you think we can do, but I'll trust your expertise.
I think that the city and the council have made, and I think this commission as well, have made some commitments to CFOG and the community about trying to get to the point of a community garden opportunity. And I think we owe them as a group and the community the opportunity to look at what their fundraising capacity is and capabilities are, and to build on that. So we really need to give them first and foremost a place that can be fundraised from. And right now, what we have is inadequate for anybody to do that. And we could not even commence work if they found a major benefactor, for example, and we're ready to go. We don't have the permits in place to deal with that we need. So I think Matthew, the city manager, is very committed to moving this forward to the point of getting to the point where, again, it can be entitled, the environmental documents are cleared, and we're again grant ready, fund ready for fundraising itself, and working through that, working with CFOG, working with the Friends, working with anybody and everybody out there. I just want to be clear, kind of at this point is that like Smithfield, frankly, which we'll talk about in a little more detail, there's a limited funding, and that's always an issue for the council to deal with at the with next fiscal year in terms of how they prioritize funding for this. But I think we're confident and comfortable that we are that we can do this level of work and have that done by the end of next fiscal year at minimum.
Perfect.
Okay, John, I was going
at a potential trailhead point that would be near the train depot, perhaps, that would link into the areas to the east and into the state park there, Burley State Park. So we've been talking to them for quite some time and working through that, and that's likely to come about. The reason why that's important is that we agreed to basically do what we did with Smithfield, which was to do this study and to look at what the ultimate design and plan should be for the train depot Johnston House. And I think that that's going to be a great time and opportunity to have a very good community conversation about whether the community garden is still a location that for that. And I kind of think we're looking at an and situation there. I don't think it's an either or, and I think that's why we're comfortable moving forward with Magnolia as a community park that has a component of the community garden in it, and also looking at the Johnston House Train Depot in the picture as well for this. And I didn't understand fully at the time why we were getting some pushback on the issues of the community garden from within the community and outside the community a little bit. And what kind of came about was that there was a concern about the implications that a fully, totally organic community garden might have on the adjoining farming that's going on there that is not organic. And I think there was great concern about putting the Justies or any other farmer on that post property in harm's way and losing their livelihood because there is this proposed organic work. And so I think that's part of the conversation that we have to get through in talking about community garden and whether that is. So that's why I hope that helps because I didn't fully understand it a year ago of why this sort of blew up. It only sort of came to light more recently for me as to why all of this sort of blew up with regard to the Johnston House site.
Huh.
Yeah, of course, it's sort of the opposite. It's the organic that gets compromised by the non-organic farmer, not the conventional farmer that gets compromised by the organic. But anyway, one possibility is maybe to have a flower, like a rose or a flower garden by the Johnston House so that it wouldn't really conflict with the farming that the Justies are doing and have the food thing at the Magnolia.
Yeah.
That could be a nice thing.
Yep. So I think I think it's an exciting time because I think those will sort of run somewhat parallel together, and we can have, I think, a very good community discussion about the community garden side of it. So we're excited about that. We'll certainly let you know what's coming around, and hopefully by your January meeting, we can. I'll be happy to bring back and circulate to you at least a concept or at least the bullet point concepts of the MOA that we're working on with Peninsula Open Space Trust. I have a draft document that I'm working on with the city attorneys on. But we'll share that with you. But I think it's great news. They're going to share financially in that planning effort and the CEQA environmental work and on getting a coastal development permit. So it's I think a great step in the right direction for all of us.
Good. That project is sounding interesting. And I too am very perplexed about the organic gardening threatening anyone, but maybe can ask questions at a different time about that. Yeah. So any other questions about this combination of Smith / Magnolia / Johnson House update?
So let me give you just a quick one. The council had a closed session item regarding Carter Park. We I'm not at liberty to say much about it other than to say that that we are still in the process of negotiations for access rights for allowing construction at Carter Park, and that's really all I can say at this point.
Is there a time limit on these negotiations, or is this open-ended to go on forever?
Well, there's a reason why there's a closed session, which is to discuss real estate negotiations, and I will leave it at that and say it's best to leave it at that at this point. But clearly,
let me ask you this important question: Is there a time frame that we can feel that something is actually moving forward?
I think within the next, I think by Christmas, we will have a much better feel for where we are and what that process and schedule is with it. Trust me, I wish I could. I don't want to play government bureaucrat here. I wish I could say more, but I really think it's best not to, because negotiations are tenuous, but I think still potentially fruitful, and hopefully this will be resolved. But we are obviously preserving all of our options. And then
Now,
the last,
but is there a deadline in mind? Like if by this time, then if this doesn't happen, then
There
we
is
do
a-
this, or we do that. I mean,
there is a timeline. There is a timeline. I can assure you there is a timeline. There, you know, and again, by your January meeting, I think that we can have, we can either have a really good conversation because we'll have completed the negotiations, or we'll be heading down a potentially other path, and we can lay out what the timeline is for this deal.
so let me ask you it in a different way. The Shakespeare Company, when I've talked to them, they're thinking that because of all these delays and because of it, that they are not going to end up being able to do the season in 2023. Is that true?
I would say that regardless of where we are in terms of schedule at this point, that they will not hit the August time frame that they normally do for 2023. And I think we had pretty much always have been fearful for that season. So we'll certainly be talking to them and figure out what options we have available to accommodate them. But I don't think it'll be on that site. Which I don't enjoy being here delivering that news to you.
No.
Or anyone.
No.
It is where we are. And then
Wait, John, can you see if she's got another way of asking the question?
what?
I said, can you see if she's got another way of asking the question?
She can ask. You're welcome to ask any way you want. I've shared as much as I possibly can, and only wish I could share. I wish I could share more.
We got the message.
I also asked Jonathan to pop on just to give you a quick update on where we are with Smithfield, and we can do this in just a couple minutes. And then I know we've got several items on the agenda. Don't want to hold up the process, if that's all right, Chair.
Please.
All right, Jonathan, have at it.
Thanks, John. Hello, everybody. Excuse me, I have a little bit more of an update on Smithfield. So recently we've been contracted with a few firms, an environmental firm, SWCA, a civil firm, Fran Loretta, and a landscape architectural firm that is Gates and Associates. So we've contracted with the three of them to come up with what we are planning to do for the time being is get the 35% design plans, as well as get a coastal development permit from the Planning Commission as well. So with that timeline in mind, there's three components to the coastal development permit: a water line extension all the way down to the park, a paved parking area, as well as the park improvements that was described in the master plan that was adopted back in July of 2022. So throughout this coastal development permit, we need to achieve a few things: is to get 135 design, as well as an initial study / mitigated negative declaration, or also known as the ISM&D. So we need those two to go ahead and proceed with the Planning Commission. But to get to that step, by the end of this year, we're planning to get the final biological resources evaluation from our environmental firm. And from there, we can go ahead and start with the design concept design. And from there, we can bring that concept design back to the Parks and Rec Commission for a study session, as well as to ask for approval to proceed with the design. From there, we can go to the Planning Commission for a study session in February. And from February to April, we can go ahead and proceed with the 35% design. During that time, we can go ahead and start with the ISM&D process. And that will take a couple of months. And from there, we can go to the City Council for a study session. And from there, we'll go to the Planning Commission for a second study session and hopefully go ahead and approve the coastal development permit in September of 2023. And again, that's the goal for now, and construction timeline is a little bit further than we kind of foresee at this moment. But right now, the first goal is to obtain the coastal development permit.
So to cut that down, it's what we've always laid out, which was a plan to review and design a water line that would extend from basically the RV park point down Wave Crest to replace a 2-inch PVC pipe that's existed there for many years to get water pressure in Smithfield, and also just quality water that we need, to get to design on the parking lot so we can negotiate, discuss with a potential donor for that work who is committed at this point to about 50% of the cost of that work, informally. And then to look at programmatically getting a coastal development permit, and we'll call it an after the fact coastal development permit because we've never had one there, for all of the project, for all of the existing developable area there, with the concept of those pieces and components that we that you adopted and the council approved as part of the master planning, with that, without getting into every bit of nitty-gritty detail with that work. So we'll explain that more in detail as we get closer to the point, but just to say that that's it. We're in line with where we said we were going to be and what the council is committed to working on. But the schedule is going to push a little bit further than any of us would like to have pushed.
Okay. Any questions?
No.
And please reach out and we can, privately, we can have a conversation about it if you want a little more detail, and we'll have some milestone charting for everybody to take a look at and deal with it, and we can share that with you. We just wonder, any surprises about where we were and what was going on with this?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. And just an update for the commissioners, we here Chair Stamper has agreed to allow the Friends of Half Moon Bay Parks and Recreation to do their update first. We'll be moving item 6D up to 6A. And tonight we have Liesl Tanner from the Friends of Half Moon Bay Parks and Recreation. We haven't heard from them since our August meeting, so we're excited to have you.
Hi, thank you. Nice to meet you. It says on here that I'm Maria Burns, but I think I know some of you. My name's Liesl Tanner. My dad was John Colbelson, who many of you know, longtime co-sider, as well as myself growing up here. I am recent board member now on the Friends of Half Moon Bay Park and Rec. I've known Hillary for a long time as well. I'm pool chair right now, so I was going to give you guys a quick little update where we are with direction of the pool, status of that. Real quick run through. Maria gave Hillary and I some things to just read out loud to you guys of what's going on with Friends. First, she wants you to know that we're getting ready to cut checks to the city from our concert and any other gifts for Carter Park. I think she will get the numbers and details electronically early next week for everybody. That was a couple thousand, I think. The Finance Committee is meeting to prepare an organization budget for review and approval in the January meeting. We've got a new cool design for the donor wall at Ted Adcock, designed by Kelly at Graphic Works, which we'll share and discuss in our next meeting. The city, Friends, and our scout Gregory met this week to get updates and plan for the donor wall in Frenchman's Creek Park. And we'll be getting a letter and additional emails out shortly to all of our past donors, asking them to renew their membership before December 31st. That's a Friends update. Quick pool update. We have been talking with a woman from a design company of what next steps are for moving forward with a pool, and a feasibility study is where we are for that. We're working on getting different quotes, just so we have a ballpark figure of what that will be, since we'll be raising most of it. We did have a meeting with Sean McFedridge, showing him some of our plans, and he was on board. He wants to get some of this on one of his board meetings in the next 3 months for more discussion. And that's where we are. We're getting quotes for how much we should raise for a feasibility study and figure out how to raise that much money when we get that.
Okay, I have some questions. I'm sorry, how do you spell your name? I'm still not getting it. What is it? Liesel?
Liesel, Liesl. But Paulette, I have to go in about 5 minutes to pick up my son at basketball. So I just wanted to.
Okay, so let me go quickly. So for instance, the Summers End money and the Carter Park money, are those like in separate accounts?
No, I think we all have it in one account right now, and we voted on a certain percentage. Hillary, do you remember, was it?
I'm trying to remember the percentage. I don't.
It's like 30, 40%, something like that. So I think 30% is going to Carter Park, and I can't remember exact numbers. I want to say it's $1,000 or $2,000, going to Carter Park.
Okay. Yeah.
That's not exact numbers. I can't remember.
Oh yeah, and I had another question. Did you guys, because I used to come to your meetings, did you actually come up, when you say you're going to do a feasibility study for the pool, did you actually come up with a plan? Because when I left the thing, it was, you were going to try to come up with a plan because, there was the question of, do we want to pool at the school? If it's at the school, then the community can't really use it. If it's somewhere else, then the school doesn't end up with it. And then there's the polo, the water polo, and that's specific in terms of its dimensions. And so there were so many different things. And that's why when I left, there wasn't a specific plan as to how, and also when I left, Sean was not cooperating with any idea of a pool at that point. No, are we not going to get?
Yeah. Liesel, do you want to just explain the plan really quick?
Yeah. So Friends has voted to pursue the high school as the location of a pool. So that's what our nonprofit is pursuing.
Okay.
Now, when we did present this, I have an extensive background in uses of pools and how much they cost and how to staff them and access. So that was something we were talking about with Sean, and he was certainly on board. In fact, he was mentioning, that back road behind the school, that could be access to a pool during the day. And we've come up with a design of a 2-pool design where one of the pools is fenced separate from the other. So a smaller pool could be accessible during the day to the community. And the larger pool that, the swim teams use and the water polo use, that could be used after school, would be available after school hours. And keep in mind, something larger and newer, energy costs, environmental costs, staffing will serve our whole community better. And that's certainly something that I'm keeping in mind, because we want the pool to be accessible to all ages, all people in our community. Absolutely. So that's our design is a 2-pool design. One of them is fenced off, and Sean has recommended we use that back road for access into one of the parking lots there for the public. And that's, negotiating pool hours and staffing is something that comes later. Who has what pool, what lanes during this time and stuff like that. But it certainly is better than our 6-lane, 3-foot deep pool. But he was very, very supportive. Hillary, were you able to see that meeting we had with him?
Yes.
It was encouraging.
Okay. Good. All right, thank you. That's great.
All right, thank you. Hillary, you can answer any other questions. I've got to run.
Yep. And I think what we'll do too, just because we moved this item up, if there are questions from the public, I'm just going to, is it possible for us to give the public chance to answer or ask questions even at the time when this was supposed to be, in case people got on late? I'm hoping that they can still ask questions that they might have come with, and we'll try to answer them.
Yeah, it's important to keep in mind this is still very early in the process. It's all very fluid. We do have a plan of moving forward. It's kind of like that library that we did in town and how long it took and everyone's ideas. And absolutely, let's answer questions. If anyone has any, I don't know if you want to type them up for me. I can maybe answer them in an email for our next meeting, or try to come to the next meeting and answer the questions as best I can.
Yeah, but we can chat with the folks on the call about what else we would need to do.
Yeah, I'm sure there's lots of questions. Sorry, I don't have more time.
Yeah, thank you for being.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Yeah, so I can't tell if we have any public questions, but we can ask public questions first, and then any commissioner questions.
If you have a public comment and you would like to speak, just go ahead and raise your hand. We only have one attendee watching right now, and doesn't look like there's any questions.
Okay, great. So I don't know, John, if you are aware if we need to sort of open up the ability of people to ask questions about this a little later in the meeting, just because we moved it up on the agenda.
Actually the agenda was noticed and it starts at 7. So and it also notices that you can move items around and take items in the order that you see fit. However, what I would say is if somebody shows up at the end of the meeting who thought this was going to be at the last point, the commission reserves the right, and you as the chair reserve the right to reopen the conversation and let them speak. But you're fine not either, because it was noticed as a 7 or 6 o'clock starting time. Sorry, 6 o'clock. You're fine, and you can choose how you wish to operate.
Okay, then does any other commissioner have any more questions about Liesel's report?
Only question I would have is that I think it would be good for this organization to separate and put together a specific account for Carter Park. Because we are going to be, of course, trying to raise money for Carter Park when it finally gets going. And I think that we need to have a very specific, clear channel of how people are going to contribute to Carter Park, and that it's not mushed together with any other funds.
Yeah, look, why don't we ask them about how that is going to work? Because I do think that right now there's some kind of allocation of just the money split into multiple pools. And yeah, I think it's done by percentage. So yeah, we can ask them about that.
Yeah, because if we're going to going to go out raising money and people specifically want this money to go to Carter Park, we then don't want a percentage of it go to this and to that and to that. No, they're specifically contributing for Carter Park. That's their baby. That's their passion. We want to be able to have that money go to Carter Park. So,
well, I think that there are so nonprofits can have the restricted funds, right? So if people donate and say this is for Carter Park, then I think it absolutely has to go for Carter Park. And same with the pool, it has to go for the pool. So my belief, and we can clarify that this is correct, but I'm pretty sure it's correct, is that an unrestricted fund would then be split into these percentages, but restricted funds would be dedicated to what they are, marked for. And I, John has his hand up.
Only to say, we can certainly, I think, staff will be happy to get some information back, and for your January meeting, obviously ask for an accounting of what's going to Carter Park. I would suggest some of this conversation probably is equally appropriate when Eddie sort of talks about the subcommittee, because I think this is part of what we were talking about in that realm. If we're going to form a subcommittee, part of that is trying to look at and work through our relationships with nonprofits and all these things, which would also be that, where does the money go? How does it split? What does it come back to? So I do suggest that there's even an opportunity there to have maybe a little bit more conversation around sort of these issues, but more on a broader programmatic perspective, just as a
that seems fine. And which subcommittee then is this?
So again, you have an item later on in the agenda, which is to consider forming a subcommittee for Summer's End.
Okay.
And I think that's a great place to start with a conversation about those conversations and getting things in order. And we can talk about that when that item comes up that Eddie's going to present.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I think if everyone's okay, we're ready to move on to the City Hall Public Space Project update.
That's fine with me unless anyone speaks up now. I see thumbs up. Let's go.
And I'll be incredibly brief. I know some of you were at the veterans event, and I know some of you have been out. And Aaron has been actively engaging out in the community, 3 concept designs, and I wish I had those. And I'll be have any of you seen those, the concept designs for that? I will get those shared. It's kind of an odd situation at this point, but I'll get them and share them with you and kind of move that forward. But the council obviously, I'll say this, the council gave direction to move forward with, let's look at and trying to plan for creating a public space next to City Hall in the parking lot. And that was a unanimous call on their part. What they've asked is and authorized is us to work with the community members to work through that. And if you recall, Aaron, Chad Hooker, and some other folks, like Mr. Kachet, have indicated a desire to, and they have basically contracted with Steve Kikuchi, or not contracted as it may be, but I think it's more of a pro bono issue, but to do that work. And Steve came back with 3 concepts, and those have been started to circulate around in the community. And the council basically gave the temporary location of the bell, I'm looking over my shoulder here, for that to go until at least April 1 of 2023 to allow some time for this to move forward. And so we're going to continue to work through this, see where we are, put some prices to the work and the effort, and I think see where we land from that point. But clearly the community consensus and the council consensus was to create some kind of place to honor those that have served and those that continue to serve the community. Happy to try, but that's not a lot of information to share.
So you're
Sorry.
going to bring those designs to us next meeting, or what?
Sure. And if I can get them, again, we don't, at this point, I don't own them, or the city doesn't own them because they're out there, but I'll reach out to Aaron and see if I can get them, and Eddie can send them on to the commissioners as soon as we have them, just so you can see them and deal with that.
We're talking about basically where the bell is right now is going to continue to be, but we're talking about other designs of how to make it look. Okay, good.
Formalizing it and closing off that driveway and formalizing it. The concepts I think are all three are great. I saw them at the Veterans event, and that's as far as I've gotten as well with it. But she got a lot of great comments that night. I know she's had them up at the farmers market as well, and trying to get out there. So they're trying to generate some community input from that point. But we'll work on seeing what we can do to help generate community input, including from the Parks and Rec Commission.
Okay. Yeah, I was trying to just get back on track with what the timeline was, and it sounds like you'll have ideas next meeting.
Yeah. Well, so the council accepted the bell donation. In essence, they accepted the bell donation with the idea that we find a permanent place for it. This commission was on the record of saying we'd like you to take a look at the parking lot at City Hall. Council agreed with that concept. And in the interim point, the council said, look, let's allow for the temporary acceptance of the bell and placement at the City Hall parking lot through at least the 1st of April, so we can have it there, honor the artist and the community members who've served, and then figure out what the permanent placement looks like and how that works. And that will also coincide with obviously a budgetary conversation as well with the council and with the community members, and hopefully that will take care of itself.
Okay, great.
All right.
Any have questions?
All right.
All right.
Okay, we can go ahead and move forward to Frenchman's Creek Park Phase 2. I think we have Melanie Gates with us.
Yeah.
Melanie Reynolds.
Melanie Reynolds.
We have Melanie Reynolds here. I know everybody knows her from the Smithfield Master Plan, but she's also helping us with the Frenchman's Creek Neighborhood Park. And back in November, the first week of November 5th, we held a pop-up meeting out at the park to get community input on what we had as a concept plan. And that's what we're here to present to you today, the input from the community, as well as hopefully receiving an input from the commission, as well as action on to progress with the design for this park. So Melanie, feel free to take it away whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Jonathan. Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. It's good to be here again and give you an update on where we're at with this Frenchman's Creek. So the meeting purpose is just to update you all on what we heard at the pop-up event, and then also ask you, the commission, to recommend the project to Planning Commission. So you know me, Melanie Reynolds with Gates and Associates. We're talking a little bit about the project again, just to remind everyone the different phases, and look at some existing site conditions, because there are wetland and top of bank impacts to the site. We'll talk a bit about the community outreach and the pop-up event and what we heard, and then we'll look at the revised phase 2 concept. And then obviously we're here for questions, comments, and hopefully further action from you guys. So a little bit about the project. You can see there's 3 phases to this project. Phase 1 is complete. That was the new play structure in this round play box. Phase 2 is the area immediately adjacent to that play area. And then phase 3 is kind of the area further down the road that's kind of tucked away, and there's a parking stall and just kind of a natural area right now. You can see here that this is the dark blue line is the top of bank line. And then we've overlaid really lightly, but so you can see the impacts of the top of bank buffer. The 100-foot top of bank buffer is the blue. And then the green that sweeps through, and obviously they overlap, is the 50-foot riparian buffer edge. So to further show that, we're going to zoom in on focus really on phase 2 tonight. We did get some information from the community. We asked when we were out there their thoughts on the phase 3, and I'll share those with you briefly. But really, we're just kind of focusing on phase 2 and putting phase 3 on the back burner for now. But like I said, keeping in mind and making sure we're talking to the community about that space as well. So here at the phase 2 area, again, this is the existing playground that was done not that long ago. This is that existing lawn area where we're looking at improving and adding a swing and a rider. And this is the existing parking that is street parking that's currently there. So this blue is the top of bank buffer, and you see it kind of sweeps under. And then this tan color is the riparian buffer. And then our area of development is kind of within this red dotted line, the flat area. And I'm going to defer to Jonathan and John about that area and how it was derived. I know there was some comment or some discussion on that, and we can focus on that, and you guys can ask questions about that once I get through this. So this is what I shared with you all last time I was here. The concept for phase 2 was to kind of increase the plaza area, 2 tables, add a swing set, and then a little independent rider. We're obviously creating new parking stalls that angle in and are not on-street parking that will provide ADA parking for the site. We were proposing to update the planting with native plantings and just kind of provide a little more recreational value in this area. There's also a kiosk and a couple seat walls and some split rail fencing that matches your existing fencing to kind of keep the park a bit more safe for the kiddos as they run around. We also briefly talked about phase 3 and the possibility of creating a new picnic area that could possibly be rentable. This is really could be anything with some benches and some tables. So these are what we took to the people. And so we had a pop-up event in the park, as Jonathan mentioned, on November 5th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. It was kind of misty, rainy. We had tents, we had coffee, we had donuts, cookies, and we saw probably 15 to 20 neighbors, adults, children, and dogs. They stopped by our tents to discuss and provide the input. This wasn't a spend the dot exercise. This is what we're proposing. Tell us what you think. So there were, comments on Post-its on the board, and a lot of really good discussion that happened. A lot of opportunity for kind of one-on-one discussion with neighbors. And so what we heard, they want to see, they being the neighbors and the people who stop by, fencing that encloses the entire park and play area. There is concern that right in this area, the grade drops off pretty steep down towards the creek. And if you have little ones playing here, in like 1 second, they're down and gone, and you now are running after them. So there's desire to fence the park a bit more and keep the kids in. They wanted to bring back the ladybug rider because we had taken it out at one point. They want to improve the creek. Obviously, we know there are limitations on what can happen in the actual creek. They do not like the use of synthetic turf anywhere. They would like to see separate dog and, child play areas. They would like to address teenager usage of the park, include drought tolerant planting, address the dead trees at the bottom of the hill in the creek. There's obvious gopher issues in the park that, leave divots and holes. And then someone did suggest parallel parking to avoid taking up more of the park. They felt that the angle in parking was, took out too much of the park. So from that, I'm going to go back here. Oh yeah. From that, we revised the concept a bit. So we looked at the opportunity for kind of parallel parking and adding 2 stalls. And, we see this all the time, the feasibility of providing safe drop-off and access in and out of cars at ADA stalls or accessible stalls that are parallel is very difficult. If you are the driver who happens to be the person with the placard, you are opening your door and exiting into traffic, and it's very much not safe. So it was kind of decided to keep the angled in parking. It provides a safe unloading area for both passengers and the driver if you were to be parking in that accessible stall. And then there's 2 additional stalls. We have added a fence, a split rail fence that matches the existing that runs along the creek now, and then also a bit along the front to kind of enclose the kiddos a bit more. You know, we know that split rail fencing, you know, is pretty permeable, but it is enough to stop the initial, you know, run of children. I have an 18-month-old, and it would be enough that I could catch up and get her before she's down, you know, at the bottom of the hill. So we think that that's a great value add with that. We added the independent rider back in over here on the corner. Instead of the previous version I showed you, I think there was an option where it was up here, and it was really, really encroaching in kind of our developable area and how much green we were able to keep in this space. So I think it actually works better over back here on the side. We also would like to point out that we are talking about removing the strip of concrete that is on this side of the existing play area so that we focus the usage and pedestrian kind of area plaza here, allowing for more green spaces in here as well. So when kids are running, they can, you know, run onto the grass pretty quickly. There is still the bench or the, you know, concrete seat wall seating, but we have been hearing that there's an Eagle Scout that would like to possibly for his project create a bench that could be here with the kiosk or we heard the Friends of Half Moon Bay talk about the donor wall. So we're looking into how that can all work together in this area. And then obviously we're still keeping the split rail fence along the street to keep the kids in, and then along the parking here. Let's see. Yeah, so questions, comments, obviously we can get to a motion, but if you have any, I mean, I'm happy to chat about this design and where we're at. And obviously, Jonathan and John, please interject anything that you feel necessary.
So if I, thank you, Melanie, thank you, Jonathan. And if I could just finish it, is to say, you can see that much like, you know, many of our other parks, this one is extremely impacted by environmental constraints. And I think our last meeting that you held, there was a rep, you know, an owner, resident asking for a basketball court down and everything with that deal. We'd love it, but we are caught in an interesting situation here. Our best course of action to comply with the coastal plan is to basically not impact the riparian area any more than what exists today. So everything that we're working on today with this design is to hold back and keep the improvements as close to and back toward the street as we possibly can, away from the riparian area, basically Frenchman's Creek. So I'm pleased with the concept. I think we've listened to the community. I think we've threaded the needle where we could here in terms of adding the independent ladybug rider back in at that location. Yes, we had a conversation with the potential Eagle Scout, and so I'm thrilled that we can sort of look and accommodate that, and maybe hopefully save some money for the community as well. And the last thing I will say is that this still may be beyond our means financially to deliver on every aspect of this. So we're going to have to look at what we can do down the road should the bids come in to look at pulling back some of these things, the seat walls being some of those things that are more expensive. So we will continue to look at this, but what we'd like to do, like with all of our projects, is to sort of get the best possible design out there, the most impact potentially to the world, and deal with that, do the coastal development permit based on that, And we can always look at bringing it back a little bit or phasing out some of those changes. But I think clearly we need to get our accessible parking right. We need to get what we committed to a long time ago, which was a swing set and some other uses in there, and improve this park. And we'll do the best that we possibly can.
Thank you, John. If I can also add too, I do have kind of like a schedule update for the commission as well. So you can see on the bottom of your screen there, we have Fran Loretta as our civil engineers, and we have Gates and Associates as Melanie is here, as you know, as our landscape design architects as well. So we'll be working together to create the 100% design to go to bid to go ahead and start construction. But there's a couple of steps that we need to go through first, like the coastal development permit, which we're trying to go through in February of next year, and get our 100% design in about June or July of next year, and hopefully can start construction in September of next year. So that's kind of our tentative timeline at the moment. But that's what we're kind of going off of at the moment right now.
Okay, well, Melanie, once again, I think very nice. I think this is a very nice design for a pocket park. I think that looks really good. Do we not have any drinking fountain there right now? No.
No.
Okay, I thought we did, but okay, and we don't have any swings.
No.
Okay. So, as John said, and I guess this is, it's going to be something I want to bring up towards the end, but yeah, the money part is going to be, the big thing in terms of where our priorities are, because as we started the meeting, we've got so many projects, we've got so many things. We need to really dive in at some point with the whole money thing and figure out what our priorities are, and also where the opportunities are for grant funding and something like that. So I think we really are going to have to drill down at some point into the whole money part of it. But as far as a plan, I think it looks really good.
Awesome. Thank you. And on that note, we can get creative, and I'm sure John and Jonathan know this and John kind of alluded to it, phasing or what the city can install and direct purchasing of play equipment, all these things to save dollars here and there.
Yeah.
And so I know as we progress into the early design phase for the construction documents, we do a very detailed cost estimate. So you're right, we'll have to dive into that really. That's coming next. Yeah.
And then in terms of the different amenities, is like the cost of different amenities available, as well as just like a record of how people responded to surveying about this? Or is that just all internally written someplace?
You mean, do I know what a swing set costs versus a ladybug rider?
Yes, like all that stuff.
I know what they cost last month, and so I'm not going to say it because it might be different this month, but we have an idea of what that costs. Yeah. And when talking with the public, we don't really discuss that. It's more, we really want to know what they want, and then it's our jobs to figure out how to get it to them in some fashion.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
If we're in a bigger park, there might be a spend the dollars exercise, which we've done, where there were other amenities to choose from, and you could have this level, or this level. But because we're looking at pretty simple, air quotes, simple amenities and improvements, there's not a lot of, room to wiggle.
Okay. Okay. That was mainly what I was wondering about. So what do you need from us then tonight? Do we vote to move forward with this?
So we would love, if you're so inclined, we're happy to check back in as we always do with these projects and things, but we are at a point where it's time to put the civil engineer to work to get to the 35% design so we can file and finalize that little piece of the work to file the coastal development permit to stay online with this. And remember, we have a grant funding on this project from Prop 68 state California. So we are under some timelines for complying and meeting timelines. So
Okay.
in order for us to optimally be maybe under construction this fall with this project, we're on a tight timeline. So what we're asking for, if the commission is comfortable with that, is just saying, yes, go ahead, move forward with this deal and move this forward to the coastal, for the design so we can move forward on the coastal development permit process. Doesn't mean this will be absolute because we're going to continue to work through this both from the civil perspective of stormwater drainage, and but also from a little bit from the cost side of this deal, and start to try to make sure that we're aligning it as much as we can with what we think the price points are.
So I love the fact that you guys, thank you for talking to the community locally there. That's just tremendously appreciated. I'm all in.
It was really great. They love the play structure. I mean, we heard nothing but how awesome that has been, and especially in COVID and the amount of kids and, families that were out there using it. And so they were super stoked to have, already have that improvement. So they say there's a lot of new younger families in the neighborhood, and this would, just really take the park over the top for them.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
I also would be remiss if I didn't give a little shout out to the Friends of Parks and Rec for their donations toward getting phase one and that equipment and that gap during the post-COVID time when we were struggling with this deal, and community members made that happen, and the Friends were the middle ground for that point and helped make that happen. So don't want to leave them out of this one.
Thank you.
They were a big piece of that.
Yeah. All right. Is there any further discussion? Because I'm going to make a motion. If not, so I'm going to make a motion to recommend the Gates a consulting design for phase 2 of Frenchman's Creek.
I'll second.
Hey, can you roll call?
Yep, thank you. All right, Chair Stamper?
Yes, I say yes.
Vice Chair Eisen?
Yes.
Commissioner Haro?
Yes.
Commissioner Eisen?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, good.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Melanie and Jonathan, for your work too.
Very good.
Okay.
All right.
What's next?
Moving on. Next, the Summers End Ad Hoc Subcommittee discussion and possible subcommittee appointment.
Have we talked about Luis's mustache yet? Because I feel like it needs to be...
I was saving it to the end.
Looks great, baby.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. So commissioners, we added this item to the agenda based on some commissioner feedback that we received at our September commission meeting, which was the week following the Summers End Music Festival. Some good points were made that having some more cooks in the kitchen could really improve this event. Some more eyes and ideas would really lift up this event. So we wanted to make sure that we revisited it. Real quick, I will clarify the reason why we opted for an ad hoc subcommittee versus a regular standing subcommittee is that an ad hoc subcommittee isn't subject to the Brown Act rules and regulations because it's not a standing subcommittee, more seasonal, more as we see it's needed. So just to put that clarification on the ad hoc subcommittee. So the first thing that we want to find out is there a need? Does the commission think there's a need to create this ad hoc subcommittee? I think before you make that determination, I'd like to go over 5 programmatic areas of the Summer Zen Music Festival that John and I we wanted to make areas of the event that could be a focus and be really a structured approach to assessing the event and improving the event. So real quick, I just wanted to share my screen with you. Okay. Oh, we're loading.
Weird, it was there.
Yeah, let me try it again here.
Try it again there. It was there at the beginning and then it went to that weird loading.
Come on, sing the song while you're doing it.
What song?
I don't know. I thought you'd make something up.
I'm too nervous, Adam. Okay. Do you see that, everyone?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So,
Yes.
so the idea was we wanted to separate the different elements of this event. That way we could, if in the situation that we did create an ad hoc subcommittee, that we would have some areas of approach and focus. And so John and I kind of separated the event to some, 5 main programmatic areas. Volunteer coordinating is something that we would like to utilize more for this event. I think there would be a lot of benefit and uses for volunteers at this event. We just haven't gone that far with it, and we've just relied mainly on our nonprofit partners and staff. Also, sponsorship programs. We were approved by the city council last year to implement a sponsorship program into our events. So we think now would be a great time, if we do choose to elect an ad hoc subcommittee, that we could work on determining sponsorship levels for this event and also recruiting sponsors for the event. We think that's a really important element to the event and something that we've gone pretty light on in the past. Also, the nonprofit selection portion of the event. Now, when we were hosting at Carter Park, it was a really small area. So we didn't have a lot of room to invite many nonprofit partners down there. So we decided 5 nonprofits were a good fit for Carter Park. And I don't know if anyone remembers, but at the last event, we invited all the nonprofits in the community to submit a letter of interest to us, those that would like to attend the event. And we asked them to identify what they would be doing in their nonprofit area, how they would engage the community, how they would benefit the event, and how the event would help their nonprofit, see some benefit from attending. Also, there's the entertainment portion of the event, both music and non-music. We definitely think it could be beneficial to the staff and the event to have ad hoc committee members that would help staff determine what genres of music and what categories that we should be looking to implement in the event. And also the non-music, you may remember we have several free activities that we provide during the event. And just to kind of take another look at those and to see if there are other age groups we should be trying to attract with these activities, and also community outreach and promotions. We think we could benefit from having ad hoc subcommittee members from the community that could use their connections and relationships in the community to build awareness to the event and help us promote the event. So those are the kind of 5, again, programmatic areas that we determined from this event. And the question now is this something that the commission thinks that we should do?
Okay, well, first of all, thank you so much for putting that together, Eddie. That's
John helped a lot. There's a lot of John. Yeah, it was. It was.
Well,
Thank you,
I'm giving credit to whoever was involved in it.
I'll take it. Thank you very much.
It is okay.
Get Eddie, take it.
It's a really excellent breakdown of, I think, basically all the main components that we're dealing with to put Summer's End together. And yes, there are those, as you say, sponsorship hasn't been strong, or this thing hasn't been really. So there's all these areas to build on, because we're growing. We're not, I mean, after maybe 20 years, we can say, okay, we got this thing down. All right. But we're nowhere near that, that level. We're still growing. We still haven't figured out where we're even having this thing. Do we still have it downtown? Do we move it to Carter Park when that's ready? I mean, where do we want to go? So we're in the still early phases of the Summer's End. But what we do know is that it's a great concert. People show up for it. It's a wonderful time, and it's something that we want to keep building. I think that's something we can pretty much all agree on. So I do think that a subcommittee is important to help grow this event, and get more input, into the growth of it, the variety of it, all these different. I love this breakdown. I think this was great. Yeah.
Thank you. I think the next move, John, correct me if I'm wrong, would they make a motion to elect an ad hoc subcommittee?
Through the chair.
Okay.
If I could, first and foremost, Paulette and I talked for quite a while at Summer's End. And I think most credit on that list, even though Eddie did a great job with it, was a result of my conversation with Paulette and other people about how we could make that better and how that went just from that afternoon and evening of the event. So I think it's a much broader bow for others. And frankly, Paulette, you should see a lot of that in your own comments and conversation that we had out there. But this came from all over with that. The other piece of that is, I think that the commission has seen that Summer's End is probably going to be a continuing effort of the community. What we're suggesting this year is to form it as an ad hoc subcommittee. And I think next year we can come back and talk about whether this is now really truly an absolute programmatic piece of what the commission does, what the community and the city does, and that we could at that point look at whether we formalize into a standing committee and not have to do this every year of appointing that. So I just want to be clear, that was the thought process, was one more year at just the ad hoc, and then just making sure we're good to go with that and then landing there. And Eddie, the last piece of that for the commission is that all we need tonight is a consensus to go ahead and form. And what, if you're going to form, then my suggestion would be to ask Hillary for volunteers, or whether she has thoughts on, and that would be 2 people we would like to see on that deal for appointment to this. We would like to begin moving on and working on with the subcommittee as soon as we possibly can, because you all know how quickly time goes. What we would suggest is that we come back after meeting, if we form tonight, that we would come back after meeting with the ad hoc subcommittee at the January commission meeting, and just talking about what we've talked about, and maybe further refining and defining what the roles and responsibilities that we've sort of landed on with the ad hoc group, so we could share that to the larger group in the community as well. So that's just sort of the next steps that we would recommend.
Thank you. Okay. I mean, this all sounds really good to me, and I guess I'm curious if I'm looking, let's see. So right now we have 2 Eisens and a Stamper.
What happened to Luis? I know he was frozen, so he might be trying to get back in. He got his screen got completely frozen.
Well, good. I always like volunteering people that aren't there.
And
Yeah.
RJ is also not, Mr. Commissioner.
Oh, RJ is automatic already, as far as I'm.
Oh, I mean, we could go that route. Just
I'm just messing around.
2 subcommittee members who are not currently on video.
Oh, Luis is back.
There, Luis.
Oh,
Coming back.
darn, Luis is back.
Oh, you missed it. Oh, Louis.
You're appointed. Congratulations, Luis.
I have no idea what happened. It froze on me, and I had
Just
to
tell
close
him
it
you're.
and come
Just tell us
Right.
you're honored.
back. I'm honored. I'm honored.
So we're just finalizing this question of if we want to create an ad hoc Summers End Music Festival subcommittee. And if we do, then we would need 2 people from this commission to be on that ad hoc committee, which would not be an annual committee at this point, because right now it will just be a single ad hoc committee. And perhaps the next year we will create an official committee for this event.
So I have questions even before slightly, just so I understand. First of all, I thought I attended, I danced, I had a great time. Last band was phenomenal. And I had a couple of notes I had jotted down. So I'm not sure, like, is this a time to talk about some of those things? Probably not. Another time, like, do we still get to give input, or should that be done individually? Or how does that need? I don't need to be a part of the committee to do that input, but
Can't hear anything.
you can't hear what I'm saying?
Yeah, we can hear
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Oh,
I would suggest 2 things. One, we're looking to come back at the January meeting and have another conversation about Summers End with the entire commission membership, and that would be a great. Otherwise, I also think it'd be great to share offline with Eddie your thoughts, comments, anybody that has that deal. I think that would be a great thing to do, which we can then compile and then share that list of the comments and everything. 1 with the subcommittee if you appoint, and 2 with the overall commission and everything with that deal. So,
And it almost sounds like Adam volunteered. That's
no.
So John, I just want to be clear as to what you're recommending. So if we form a committee tonight,
mhm.
are you suggesting that this committee meet before the next recreation commission meeting, and then have that subcommittee talk about what was discussed and open up the subject then of what happened at Summers End at the next meeting? Okay.
Yes,
Good.
perfect.
I agree with that. I think we should do. So
Okay.
I would like to, so can we pass a motion to create an ad hoc subcommittee?
Okay, so I'll make a motion that I am making a motion that we create an ad hoc subcommittee for the Summers End concert.
I want to second it, but I also want to let it be known that this Eddie and John have done a great job with this, and this is only to possibly, if anything, possibly enhance the experience
Correct.
of an already great event.
Correct.
All the, just so we're clear on what we're doing here.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, that is great to add.
Okay. But
So then
roll call, Eddie?
No, now you already seconded. So now we can just vote. Roll call.
Chair Stamper,
Yes.
Vice Chair Eisen,
Yes.
Commissioner Haro,
Yes.
Commissioner Eisen,
Yes.
motion carries.
Okay. So now I feel like we need to appoint the 2 Eisens onto this committee.
Well, I'm prepared to volunteer for this committee. I'm, very enthusiastic about this particular subject. I love the Summers End. I just want it to be as great an event as it can be. So I just want to contribute and hopefully help make that happen.
Yeah, I would say that we should only do one of the Eisens really, and we should get some diversity of other opinions.
I would like, Luis, are you interested in, because this would be a really good, because, you know, one of the things that I feel was not completely there for us was the whole Latino component for Summer's End. And so I'd love to have you on there so that we have a full, real cultural event that reflects Half Moon Bay.
I would love to.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Just a quick heads up. I am in the middle of opening up my own barbershop in town.
Oh, how
So
fun.
my schedule right now was like all over the place. But I'm definitely, I'm all for it for sure.
Okay, well, we'll need to find a time where we all, you know, that we can meet and that it works for you and that we'll all meet and get into this. But that's great.
And
So,
I just
the
want to
next,
Can I just add one thing really quickly, which is that I also feel, Luis, like, please, you do not need to feel like your sole role is to represent the Latino community, and like whatever you have to contribute, I think you should contribute, and it should also be on us as individuals to try to all think about this and not just put it on someone who is Latino. So we will.
It's always helpful.
I don't look at it that way.
Yeah.
I appreciate that, but I don't look at it that way.
Right.
You know, mainly I do want to get the youth involved as well,
Right.
since I am involved with coaching basketball. So
Yeah.
anything that appeals to the younger crowd and also the Latino community, I'm for it. I'm
Perfect.
there.
Perfect.
so Hillary, Adam.
Luis, I'm excited for you to start working with my mom. Get ready, buckle up, baby.
I don't know what's so I don't know why you're making such a big deal of it. She seems like a wonderful lady, man. What's going on?
Thank you, Luis.
Chair Stamper, I think the simplest answer is to appoint Luis and Paulette Eisen
Great.
as the ad hoc subcommittee, and that means nothing more than that on the commission's behalf.
Adam, I know you had a lot of ideas, so please contribute them and share with the subcommittee.
Yeah,
ASAP.
I'll send an email. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Great.
Thank
And I think it's probably worth mentioning the Summer's End Music Festival. Where did it come from? Back in 2017, when I first started, the Recreation Department took over the concerts in the park, which had a pretty nice budget for the series of events. But there was some leftover money, and we wanted to use it and still carry on the mission of that event, you know, to build community through music. And so myself, Matthew, Danielle Sanderson, who was our senior management analyst at the time, Paulette Eisen, and Commissioner Nick Ramirez brought everyone down to Carter Park, showed them the idea. They were on board, totally supportive. And the idea was to use the remaining funds to make a grand finale to the concert series. But the most important thing was what to name it, like what to call it. And I had some bad ideas. I had some real bad ones. I thought they were great. But Paulette Eisen, Commissioner Eisen, is the one that came up with the name for Summer's End. So it's kind of cool that you're on the committee, Paulette.
Yeah, no, it's great. I still, yeah.
That's wonderful. Thank you. And just as a side, I also thought Night of Lights this year was great, and it was fun to see everyone out. And I also just thought that the Seacrest tent with the live band was a fun additional touch. So that was a cool element that we haven't seen before, and I liked that. So that's all.
And Paul, Commissioner Eisen, you had some things that you wanted to say about Night of Lights too. I think we can probably should we go ahead and wrap up this and
Yeah.
all
Yes.
good, and we move on to future items?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, let's go ahead and move on to future items, and then Paulette, you can go ahead and carry on with the Night of Lights.
Let me just, before we totally wrap up and put a bow on that, who is going to initiate trying to get the meeting, our first meeting together.
I'll take care of. I'll work with Luis and find out what his availability
Okay.
with you as well, and then I'll lead that.
Perfect. Okay. So what's our next?
So now future items.
Future items.
Night of Lights. Hit it, Bubby.
Well, I don't really. I've attended the 2 events we've had. I do think the Friday, the Friday idea, the idea of the 4 Fridays, I think is really good. I love it. I think that, and it's going to be interesting to hear from the Downtown Business Association as well as from the chamber as to how that is affecting business. And, I do know that we had a bigger turnout for the tree lighting, which was a lovely event. And we had a bigger turnout even for the parade, which was another wonderful event.
Yes, awesome. Everyone that was around me was so happy with that.
Right. So this is just, it reminds me of Summer's End in that it's a growing thing. It was brand new last year. This is the 2nd year. It continues to grow. People get to know more about it, because even this year, a lot of people still think there's only one night, the night of night of lights. And so they're just getting used to the idea that it's nights of light, nights of lights. And so, this, it takes time for things to develop, grow, get, and get more people on board and more things happening on those Friday nights. So, that's what, again, this is another one of those things that has great potential for more development, but so far it's wonderful events and definitely is community building and hopefully also beneficial to the downtown businesses.
Yeah, I think while we're just talking about both of these events as community events, something to just keep in the back of our minds is wondering what special opportunities we might present for the older kids. I was thinking about that with Night of Lights just because of the Seacrest having the various things for younger kids and kind of watching who was present at the event and thinking to myself, just are there things that we can do for that like middle school to high school age? Because it's in a small town, it is harder, I think, to find things to do at night. And it's such a cool opportunity maybe to have this appeal to our teenagers. And I don't know that I have the answer, but it's definitely something that I'm thinking about.
I will, if I could, I will share that one of our staff, her teenage daughter, her mom here, who was a staffer, asked her whether she wanted to be in the parade and ride in the car or whatever, the city truck or whatever with that deal. And she's like, "Oh my God, Mom." She goes, "I couldn't go back to school if I did that." So we're fighting an uphill battle, but I think we all agree that teen and the tweens, before they're driving and all that is a tough age that we don't really usually hit on with the events as much, just because they're a tough one to connect with. But I thought that was funny.
Yeah, it is, and I think what's so interesting is that like we're such a special community and how kind of small we are still. And so there is this feeling of like a sort of safe place to let your kids go and explore and do those types of things in our downtown. That's really special. And I would love if we could just figure this out a little bit more for those groups. So
I agree. I think that's really good, Hillary. I think that's something we really might look at from the Parks and Rec, because this is put on by the chamber. I don't know what role the Downtown Business Association plays. I would think that they play some kind of role. Well, they do. I know, just even if it's keeping their stores open and agreed to do that. So, so the question is there a role potentially for the city, for the Parks and Rec part of the city, to add something to one or more of these events that especially would think about that age group, because I absolutely agree with you. And that would be, that could be really good.
No, it doesn't quite correlate 100%. Sorry. But in Croton, where my wife in New York, they do something called the Blaze. And it's not what you're thinking, Hillary. It is, they do this whole like pumpkin carving event type thing. And then there's music, and you kind of like walk through, and it's at night, and there's all the pumpkins and the music and the whole thing. And that generates quite, you know, those types of things. Or if there's like a haunted house associated, or like, you know, those are the things that generally get that age group. And others, and people pay for it. And so we could even turn it into an event that maybe a nonprofit glommed onto and kind of like headed up. And, you know, we used to have Young Actors Workshop that did the haunted house, you know, another example of something I felt like we really missed at this last pumpkin festival.
I agree.
And so just kind of like in that genre, I'm not exactly sure, but that's kind of the type that can usually bring younger people, and they're kind of, you know, they're a little scared.
Or an event at the event center. Remember when we went to see I think it was called the Wizards?
Yeah, that's happening again. Yeah, that's happening in January.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And, but yes, that's still, yeah, a little younger, I would almost say. I'm trying to get that like 17 to 15 year age.
So I'm going to be the taskmaster a little bit to just try to keep us
focused.
The agenda item there from a Brown Act. We probably can probably put this in somewhere in there, but not. Eddie, where are we on the agenda, and just what's next to see whether those. Next all great ideas. Don't get me wrong. I think
you're bringing me back. This is my favorite part right here.
and we obviously would need to get Crystalline in this conversation, because it is ultimately her event. But we have a great relationship.
Absolutely. Yeah.
John, where we are right now, we're future items preview, maybe report outs right there in the.
Can I just to close that up, Luis, as you work on the subcommittee for Summer's End and you're thinking about, I know kids, just like keep that in mind.
Oh, absolutely.
And then, yeah. That's
absolutely.
All.
Absolutely. 10-4, I got you.
Thank you.
And I think now we can go ahead and move on to item 8 in the agenda, report outs. Anybody have any good things to acknowledge or say?
Before, let's see, what was the commissioner comments? I'm not sure, or future items preview. Okay, how about future items? We kind of glossed over that or didn't do it, but I want to make sure that we do talk about either, I think it should be maybe next meeting, is what our goals had been for 2022. See what we accomplished, what we didn't, what we partially, you know, all of that. And talk about goal setting for the following, for 2023. And also talk about budgeting so that we can see what we would recommend. You know, we can't do Smithfield, Carter Park. We can't do it all in 2023. And so we need to start looking at what can we do? Where should the funding go? Also, what opportunities, as I've mentioned before, are there for grants so that we also put, you know, we know that, okay, we don't have the money for this, but there is a grant opportunity and we need to go after it. So all of that, I think, is important to set the stage for the following year. So I think that's really important for our next meeting.
And we will be doing that. That will be on the agenda for the next meeting, as well as appointing chair and vice chair. But we'll also work through the priorities, goal setting, goals achieved.
Okay, good.
I think it would be helpful to get that in advance if possible. Are you able to send out, like Matthew did that lovely job of sharing previous goals and then comparing with how we think we hit or missed, and
Definitely.
that in advance, I think would be very helpful.
Will do.
One of the things we were discussing was, and I don't know how feasible this is, so this is just, again, me going off on my rants and raves, but there is listening sessions, I believe, for the city council.
February. February.
So we were one thought I was having. I don't want to do separate listening sessions for us, but I was wondering if during the listening sessions for council, if there could be a board there. You know how we usually put the boards up, and I'm not sure if that's the same format, that just said Parks and Rec ideas, and then we could maybe just go over them at some point, like in March or April or something like that afterwards, and just see what the public came back with that maybe we could incorporate into a future year. You know,
Or just to have that as one of the headings, because you know you always put those headings up. Make sure that that heading is up there, and then see what comes in from the public underneath that heading.
who are you responding to over there, John? Somebody's more important than me right now. What's going
Nobody's more important than you. It's one of your fans. No, I think those are good. Part of this is advocating, obviously, for yourself too, and those listening sessions are important. That commissioners are heard as well, and kind of dealing with that. So because otherwise certain folks deal with that. But
yeah,
we can certainly start to deal with that. We're just at the beginning point of starting the conversation about the strategic planning for the council, as well as planning out the listening sessions and everything with that. So there's ample opportunity to do that. And I think your January meeting where you talk about your own priorities, we look at the year past and look at the year forward, is a great place to start and to deal with that.
yeah.
I am confused. When will the city council, when did the city council last determine its priorities?
The city council does that annually.
Yes, when?
They typically do it, well, it's varied a little bit, but typically they do it by April.
Yeah.
Because those align then with the budget and the prioritization in the budget itself that's adopted in June. So so that's April, May, but because of COVID, everything got pushed, just got messed up. So this year we're looking to start again listening sessions when they should be, which is February, leading then into March, April for priority setting, and then finalizing the budget with those priorities baked into it.
Okay. So part of me is I am trying to decide if it makes sense for us to set priorities that then we lobby the city council to prioritize versus hear from the city council what they are hearing as priorities and then try to provide feedback on those things and help meet those priorities after they've set them, in which case we're setting if we do it the latter, setting our goals at totally the wrong time.
I was reading from Commissioner Eisen's comment was that you would look in your January timeline to look at what your priorities are, what your goals are, to start to look at what that means from a financial means and everything with that deal, and to, in some form or fashion, have that presented to the council so they're aware of what your goals and strategic priorities are, with the hope and belief that those would at some point, for the most part, align with the council's strategic goals and priorities and their budgeting that would accommodate with that deal. So I think that's what we're all saying, which is that your work in January will be important earlier than later, because that will help formulate what the council priorities and goals are.
Exactly.
Okay, good. then I think that's fine.
You like the way he weaved that together? I mean, is this guy a master or what? Like we got a Jedi on the other side here.
Yeah, just run my mouth. Occasionally something comes out that makes some sense. I guess. If you talk enough, something will come out.
All right.
So that January meeting, I will say right now, is going to be a full meeting. If we're going to be having subcommittee report back, we're going to do selection of chair, vice chair, and we're going to look at strategic priorities and everything with that deal. That's a full meeting right there. So I would suggest we try to hold from much of anything else. We can do the regular reports, but I think that's a full evening commitment from all of you.
Yeah, I think everyone needs to be prepared for our lengthiest meeting of the year, basically.
Yep. And if we can always look at a special meeting if we need to after that point to finalize or formalize anything with it, if based on the needs.
Okay.
All right. Sounds
And
good.
do we have any report outs tonight, commissioners?
The volleyball courts are gone from Poplar.
But they didn't wash away, so that's the
But
good news.
Not sure, yes, but they're they're no longer there now because of
we weather and balance on that. But thank you again for all your group for your help and enjoyed it again.
there. And I hope that next year we just have a permanent permit so that then it's just easier for everyone. But
that's all of our hope to do that as well. So bring that forward for your list for January.
Any commissioner comments?
Yeah, maybe a volleyball tournament. Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, if there's no comments, I think we're ready for adjournment.
great. Okay.
Good meeting tonight. A lot of positivity and smiles. I love it.
Very good.
Let's adjourn then.
Thank you all.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
All right, everyone have a good night.
Bye.
See you.
Bye.
Thank you, Luis.